One sci-fi show from the 1970s was so bizarre that, rumor has it, even NASA scientists cringed at the physics. But here's what nobody tells you. That same show accidentally predicted 3 major technological breakthroughs and launched the career of a future Oscar winner who's still embarrassed about it today. Today, I'm counting down the most wonderfully weird sci-fi shows from the decade that gave us disco, bell-bottoms, and television that made absolutely no scientific sense whatsoever. These weren't just strange. They were gloriously, unapologetically bonkers in ways that would make modern showrunners hide under their desks. The 1970s were a magical time when someone could pitch, what if we made a show about literally anything involving space and somehow it would end up on television? Let's dive into the beautiful madness of 70s sci-fi. Number 10, Space, 1999, 1975 to 1977. Starting us off at number 10 is the show that asked the important question, what if the moon got blown out of orbit and became a spaceship? Space, 1999. This British production premiered just as America was still high on the Apollo missions, and someone at ITC Entertainment thought, you know what space needs? More explosions and less actual science. The premise? A nuclear waste explosion on the moon's far side somehow launches our lunar neighbor out of Earth's orbit, taking Moonbase Alpha and its 311 residents on a wild, unscheduled tour of the galaxy. Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, fresh off their mission Impossible Success, played the base commanders trying to keep everyone alive while encountering a new alien civilization every week. The show had a budget that would make Star Trek jealous, with elaborate sets, detailed miniatures, and special effects that looked fantastic for 1975, which means they looked like someone was playing with very expensive toys. The series lasted 2 seasons and proved that audiences would watch anything involving space travel, even if the basic premise violated every law of physics known to mankind. It was like watching a very expensive fever dream about lunar real estate. Number 9, The Starlost, 1973 to 1974. At number 9, we have the Canadian sci-fi series that had more ambition than budget and more confusion than plot, The Starlost. Originally created by sci-fi legend Harlan Ellison, who later removed his name in protest over how the show turned out, this was supposed to be a serious exploration of humanity's future in space. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about what happens when you give a brilliant writer a Canadian television budget and expect miracles. The premise involved a giant generation ship called Earthship Ark, where different human cultures lived in isolated biospheres, unaware they were hurtling through space. Keir Dullea, fresh off 2001, A Space Odyssey, played Devon, a man who discovers the truth and tries to save the ship from destruction. The show had all the ingredients for great science fiction: philosophical questions, advanced concepts, and a respected mind behind it. What it didn't have? Enough money to make any of it look convincing. The special effects were so low budget, the ship looked like it was made from leftover parts from a high school theater production. And honestly, it might have been. Number 8, Planet of the Apes, 1974. Coming in at number 8 is the TV adaptation that tried to capture the magic of the movies, and ended up creating something entirely different, Planet of the Apes. The show premiered 6 years after the original Charlton Heston film became a cultural phenomenon, and CBS thought they could ride that wave on a weekly basis. What they got was a show about 2 astronauts and a chimpanzee wandering around California, trying to avoid guerrilla soldiers while learning valuable lessons about prejudice and friendship. Ron Harper and James Naughton played the human astronauts, while Roddy McDowall returned, this time as Galen, a sympathetic chimpanzee, because apparently he was the only actor in Hollywood who could make monkey makeup look dignified. The series lasted 14 episodes and proved that some movie concepts work better as 2-hour experiences than as weekly television. It also proved that audiences in 1974 weren't quite ready for a show where humans were the oppressed minority, even if they were being chased by very articulate apes. Number 7. The Fantastic Journey, 1977. At number 7 is the show that combined time travel, alternate dimensions, and the Bermuda Triangle into one gloriously confusing package. The Fantastic Journey. The premise? A group of people get caught in a mysterious cloud in the Bermuda Triangle and end up on an island where different time zones exist simultaneously. They could walk from the 1960s into the 23rd century just by crossing a hill, which sounds like the kind of thing you'd dream up after reading a geography textbook upside down. The cast included Jared Martin as Varian, a man from the future with psychic powers, and Roddy McDowall as Jonathan Willoway, a scientist from the 1960s who served as the group's guide. Each week, they'd wander into a new zone filled with its own problems: primitive tribes, advanced alien civilizations, or time-bending logic that made absolutely no sense. The show lasted just 10 episodes, but it proved one thing: people will watch anything if you toss in enough fog machines and temporal paradoxes. Number 6. Logan's Run, 1977 to 1978. Next up, the show that took a dark dystopian future and somehow made it suitable for family viewing. Logan's Run. Based on the 1976 film, the series followed Logan 5 and Jessica 6 as they fled a society that kills everyone when they turn 30. Think The Fugitive, but with more existential dread and shinier costumes. Gregory Harrison and Heather Menzies played the leads, running from city to city, pursued by the society's enforcers, the Sandmen, and accompanied by a wisecracking android named Riem. Because every 70s sci-fi show needed at least one philosophical robot on wheels. Airing during the family hour, the series had to tone down the source material's darker themes. Instead of exploring ageism and social control, viewers got weekly adventures featuring attractive people in form-fitting outfits, learning moral lessons. It lasted 14 episodes and proved that some concepts are just too dark for primetime TV, even when you wrap them in metallic jumpsuits and add a lovable robot sidekick. Number 5. The Time Tunnel, 1966 to 1967, but huge in 70s reruns. Taking the number 5 spot is the show that made time travel look like the world's most dangerous amusement park ride, The Time Tunnel. Created by disaster king Irwin Allen, this 60s classic found a second life in 70s reruns, especially among kids who had no idea how bad the science was, but loved every second of it. The story followed two scientists, Tony Newman and Doug Phillips, played by James Darren and Robert Colbert, who get trapped in a top-secret government project and are hurled through time like human ping-pong balls. Every episode, they land in a different famous moment in history: Titanic, Pearl Harbor, the Alamo, usually just in time to make things worse, then vanish before the credits roll. It only lasted one season, but syndication turned it into a cult favorite. Who cared about time paradoxes when you had smoke machines, Civil War battles, and dramatic cliffhangers? Before we continue, which of these bizarre 70s sci-fi shows do you actually remember watching? And what was your favorite weird science fiction series from that decade? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what caught your imagination back when special effects meant miniatures and miracle glue. And if you're enjoying this wonderfully weird ride through retro sci-fi, give this video a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow, and lets us know you want more content from the decade that gave us the best worst television ever made. Number 4. Arc 2, 1976. At number 4, we have the post-apocalyptic children's show that somehow made the end of the world seem educational, Arc 2. Set in the 25th century, after pollution and war had wiped out civilization, this Saturday morning show followed a mobile science lab, the Arc 2, as it cruised around helping survivors rebuild humanity with knowledge, kindness, and futuristic tech that looked suspiciously like camping gear. It starred Terry Lester as Jonah, with Jean-Marie Hahn as Ruth and Jose Flores as Samuel. And of course, Adam, a super intelligent chimpanzee who communicated through sign language and somehow had more emotional intelligence than half the cast. The show mixed eco lessons with Mad Max-like world building, teaching kids about science, cooperation, and why you should never dump radioactive waste in a forest. It only lasted 15 episodes, but proved that you could make nuclear fallout seem heartwarming if you added a good moral and a chimp in a jumpsuit. Number 3. Land of the Lost, 1974 to 1977. Coming in at number 3 is the show that combined dinosaurs, time travel, and family dysfunction into one unforgettable Saturday morning experience, Land of the Lost. Created by Sid and Marty Krofft, the kings of psychedelic children's TV, this show followed the Marshall family, who fell through a dimensional portal and ended up in a prehistoric world full of rubbery dinosaurs, primitive Pakuni, and terrifying lizard creatures known as the Sleestack. Spencer Milligan played Rick Marshall, a park ranger doing his best to keep his kids alive while deciphering ancient technology and dodging pterodactyls. But what made this show truly special? It never talked down to kids. The show explored parallel dimensions, time loops, even extinct civilization. The Sleestack weren't just villains, they were a tragic race trying to survive. The Pakuni had their own actual language, developed by a UCLA linguist. Land of the Lost ran for 3 seasons and became a generational touchstone. Proof that you can challenge kids' minds and throw in a T-Rex or 2, as long as you do it with heart. Number 2. UFO, 1970 to 1971, but popular in 70s syndication. Our runner-up is the British show that thought the future would be full of flying cars, purple wigs, and alien invasions, UFO. Created by Jerry Anderson, the man behind Thunderbirds, this series imagined the world of 1980, where Earth is defended by Shado, a top-secret alien defense organization hidden beneath a movie studio. Ed Bishop starred as Commander Straker, who juggled alien attacks and government secrecy while somehow managing to rock a silver jumpsuit without blinking. The show tackled alien abductions, deep state conspiracies, and emotional burnout, all while looking like a disco fashion catalog. Moonbase operatives wore silver wigs and lavender eyeshadow because reasons. It only lasted 1 season, but reruns in the 70s turned it into a cult classic. And if you were a kid watching this in 1976, you were absolutely sure that by 1980, your job interview might take place in a submarine base with laser cannons. Number 1. The $6 Million Man, 1973 to 1978. And finally, the number 1 show that made being a cyborg the coolest gig in the world, The $6 Million Man. Lee Majors starred as Steve Austin, a former astronaut who's rebuilt with bionic parts after a devastating crash. His super arms, super legs, and bionic eye turned him into a Cold War superhero with a government paycheck and the world's best slow-motion run. The show was loosely based on the novel Cyborg by Martin Caidin, but let's be real. The TV version ditched the hard science for weekly spy adventures, sabotage plots, and the occasional bionic Bigfoot showdown. And who could forget the sound? That iconic na-na-na-na-na noise that told you Steve was about to jump 40 feet in the air or punch a truck into a wall. It ran for 5 seasons, launched the Bionic Woman spin-off, and made an entire generation believe that technology wasn't just cool. It could make you better, faster, stronger. These 10 shows represent a golden age of wonderfully weird sci-fi, when imagination outpaced logic and nobody let facts get in the way of a good story. They may not have made scientific sense, but they made emotional sense to the kids and dreamers who watched them. They captured the optimism of the 70s, where anything seemed possible, especially if it involved laser guns and talking computers. They were bizarre, they were beautiful, and we wouldn't change a thing. Thanks for taking this journey through the chrome-plated chaos of 70s sci-fi, where the future was bright, the logic was loose, and the memories are unforgettable.